I was advised by someone to visit this area, and I wasn't exactly sure why. That was, though, until I did some digging and realized there's some history that was located right behind you guys, and more of it back in this direction. I encourage you to keep watching to see what's in store for today's adventure. I want to start this off with a before aerial image from 1939. The arrow is where I'm currently standing. You can see how much was here back then with both rails and a mining site. It was a busy, bustling area. But here's how it looks in modern day. Just up there was a massive mining site, and I originally was going to do a deep dive on the mining history, but since everything's gone, except for that giant coal bank and woods, there's not really much to show. But this site was serviced by rail, and much of that infrastructure is still in place today, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. So if you're ready, just come along with me. I think you can kind of see why we're not going to be focusing on so much of the mining history because, well, even though the history should be kept alive, I also like to kind of trace and identify what's still existing today. And I think it'd be a needle in a haystack to find anything. We'd be lucky if we find some concrete, some steel pieces, but from what I've seen and during my research, 99% of everything that was up here is now gone. But like I said, what's still existing today is how this site was serviced. And we have a couple different sections of rail. The ones near us are active, including the one right in front of us here. And there's also one in the distance, elevated. So before we start exploring the old infrastructure in that direction, let's learn about the rail history as to what we're looking at and why it played an important role in that site just up there. Now, to make sure I have all my facts straight and not to misconstrue anything, I do have my cheat sheet with me. So for starters, where we're standing, as we already explained, is a parking lot. You can see there's parking spaces, and it comes around at a curve. That's because this curve was originally a rail line, so tracks came right through here. Originally, it was the Lehigh and Susquehanna Railroad, but later, and more prominently used by the CNJ, Central Railroad of New Jersey. So the CNJ came right through here, the same direction, same shape as this parking lot, next to these tracks over here, which we're going to talk about, and underneath the bridge and tracks in the distance. Now this active line right here, I believe this is a branch line coming off a main line. The main line basically paralleled the Susquehanna River, which is back over there. So the main line was close to the river, and this is a branch line coming off right next to the CNJ here. And today, this is used by Luzerne and Susquehanna Railroad, which is a subsidiary of R.J. Corman. Now the line behind you guys that's elevated with the bridge going over was originally D&H, Delaware and Hudson. Today, it is owned and operated by NS Norfolk Southern. Now for this colliery site here in the breaker, without a doubt, it was serviced by CNJ, Central Railroad of New Jersey, but possibly LV because according to the Rail Guide app, both lines were basically shared on this property here. CNJ definitely came through here close to this mining site, but LV also had lines back here for either holding or storage lines, probably for waiting loaded and empty coal cars to be picked up. But with confirmation of the old map image, tracks went up here and right next to the breaker site, and without a doubt we know it was CNJ. Now getting back to the LV, we actually talked about that recently because I was here just a few months ago, basically clear over in that direction, right along the river behind a medical facility. Over there is the Norfolk Southern Gauntlet Bridge. But next to that are some old abandoned LV bridges. We walked them, we documented them. Some are more intact than others. And we know that that line came right along the Susquehanna, as we already explained. So this branch line was part of that main line that we documented already just a few months ago. And I'm also going to be returning to that site this coming summer to investigate the waters, as I believe there's some bridge wreckage beneath it. So this is all kind of tying together, adding another piece to the puzzle, as I like to say, about a mining site right here, LV behind us, CNJ here, and knowing that today some of it's still in existence, and for what I was told, is that some of the old infrastructure is still remaining today too, further in the distance. And that's where we're heading now to check out what remains of that old infrastructure. Now back here at the NS Bridge, we could see that back in the D&H days, this was a double bridge, double line. The abutment wall has clear evidence that another bridge would have been right next to that one. So, not as busy as it used to be, but at least 2 trains a day do cross that between Enola and Binghamton, New York. Now, if you're curious about what mining company was up there and more details of that, well, I'm not gonna leave you hanging. If you continue watching until later in the video, I will share a few facts, details, and pictures about the colliery and breakers site that was located just up there. This appears to be a dumping ground today. It is a mess down here. But if you could tell, what does this look like? A rail bed. This is the old CNJ line. Came directly underneath this bridge, right next to LV, right down there. So if we do turn around, basically this curves right into the parking lot, right where we just came from. Oh, look at, we found a toy. Well, at least this line down here is officially abandoned. Now, obviously there's nothing right here as far as rail infrastructure, ties, rails, spikes. I don't see anything here. But from what I was told is that if we do continue further back, we should come upon some of that stuff. There's even a Samsung flat screen TV right here. I don't think it's playing anything good. Bad reception down here. There's shoes, furniture, patio furniture, tires, part of a sandbox. Just a lot of trash. I think before we continue further down, let's go topside. I'm not gonna go onto the bridge or cross it, but I do wanna see if there's any dates up there and if there's any more evidence from the old D&H days. What the hell was that? Something squeaked beneath my feet. And as I was searching around, look what I found. I found a spike, but that's not an old spike. That is pretty new and modern. Most likely came from just above us. I sent out to do a shopping list, and one of the things they were asking for is a bun to put in the oven. Well, I couldn't find a bun, but I found a Wilson football, so I think that'll be just fine. They said that's high priority, so I have to get back and finish the list. And here we are, top side of the bridge. I believe this is a through truss bridge, if I'm not mistaken. And this is milepost 687, I believe. There's a bunch of ties and some concrete over here, even some steel. I don't know what that would have been, but we do have some rail. Now, this is basically bordering that mining site that we talked about earlier. And there's a tree up here with some colored Easter eggs. Well, we are here in March. Easter's right around the corner, and I guess someone or something is prepping for it. Up here, you can see how wide this rail bed is. Single rail today, but without a doubt, at least 2 came through here. Now, I did say earlier, which I may be incorrect, is that there was another bridge next to this. That's still partially true. I'm thinking though that this bridge was already here for D&H and had 2 lines coming through it. There's definitely room closer to the other side for another line. So I'm thinking that's more likely that 2 lines came through this bridge, but I'm not going to rule out that another type of bridge or extension came to the right of it, because the abutment walls definitely seem wide enough. Looks like a new guardrail here. Yeah, I'm thinking another line was right here. But if you have other thoughts or insight, by all means, share it down below. This is a bridge I would be willing to cross though, if it wasn't active, because this is a pretty new graded walkway with a railing. I wouldn't be so sketched out. But from up here though, we're gonna be looking down now upon CNJ and LV. Oh, I'm starting to see now. I see some rails branching off the LV down there. Yep, so right there, there is a spur. And looks like there's a bridge over there too, going over a creek. So we'll have to investigate that. And I think we're gonna come upon a lot more trash, but this area looks interesting to say the least. So let's get back down the ground and make our way along the old CNJ. And if we're lucky, we'll catch a train either on the NS line right here or down below for RJ Corman. Before heading down, I wanted to give it one final look, and I think I was definitely incorrect. I don't think another bridge was located next to this one. The main reason why is because there's no support column or pier coming out farther. That's the giveaway right there. But what my initial giveaway was these posts right here, these blocks with anchor bolts. They're on both sides. That's what I mistaken as an extension of the bridge or a secondary bridge. I think these were maybe had something mounted to them, like maybe signals or posts or some type of structure, but I'm pretty certain it wasn't a bridge. I think this is the only bridge that had probably 2 lines going across it. I couldn't find a date, but it is an old steel bridge. And just stopping to look at the rivets and how it's constructed, even down here on the pad it's sitting on, there's even like some wedges down there, almost like blocks to fill in the gap. So interesting to say the least, but I just wanted to let you know I did kind of correct myself just by looking at it a bit more. Back down the ground, some old stonework here for the rail bed, like a retention wall. And down here we do have rails, which from up above, I'm mistaken for a spur line. I don't believe that's the case. I think this is just chunks of rail placed here. The longer one over there is what I saw from up above. I'm like, oh, there's a spur coming off the LV, RJ Corman. That's not the case. I guess they were doing track replacement, track repairs maybe, nor do I see a switch down here either. And there's just other rails laying in different angles. So that's a good sized bridge though. I don't know the length. Maybe I could measure that on Google Earth and I'll put the length on the screen. I know we haven't made too much progress yet, but bear with me. I'm just trying to cover all my bases before we move on, making sure we are learning and seeing everything that we can before progressing further back. But back here, I will say, looks a bit more promising. There's a lot of trash. There's a car seat right there. This looks like part of a grill or headlight assembly. There's buckets back here, more children's toys. So even though our initial findings and discoveries were a bit misleading, at least we're finding out what's actually going on down here. So we're now parallel to a bridge down here for RJ Corman. So let's take a peer at that. And one quick observation, we're just walking right there, and where we're coming down to looks like another rail line. So we did learn there were multiple lines back here for staging or holding or storage. So we may be coming upon some of those. Looks like this would have branched off from the LV. So this might be one of those storage tracks. I don't know what someone's doing with this. Hopefully they're not hanging by a hammock, because that's gonna be a far drop. So that bridge is definitely not as impressive as the one we just came from. That's more typical to a girder bridge, minus the sides or the rails along it. That is just old LV today, LNS or RJ Corman. I'm gonna refer to it as RJ Corman for the remainder of the video if we do mention it, just because that is who is operating on it today. Potentially though in the future, could be Reading and Northern if a sale does go through with that line. All right, now I know why I was advised to come back here, and my suspicions were correct. We are indeed walking on a rail bed. You want to know how I know that? Because I have proof. Right here are the rails. They are still in place. And these are not just laying here, these are in place where train cars would have rode over them. So without a shadow of a doubt, that is what we're walking on right now. And the rails are still in existence, but they are pretty much buried up to the top almost. So although I'm going to search if we find an appropriate spot, it may be very difficult to almost impossible to find any dates or manufacturing stamps on these rails. But I know a rail bed when I see one, and we solidified it right here. We're standing in the gauge as we speak. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to show you on the Railguide app with my GPS exactly where we're standing. So let me get myself positioned here. So the dot you're going to see is where we're standing on right here, which is definitely CNJ, even though it branched off of LV. So like I said, they shared trackage rights, it appears, in certain areas where a CNJ line came off of LV. Actually, no, I am mistaken. I apologize. This is all LV. The blue line is CNJ, which would be right next to us, up on that little elevation. And there's a vacuum right there. Vegas Paranormal, if you're watching, found you a vacuum. So I got the lines mixed up here because they're really close to each other. So CNJ right up there, LV right here. This is an LV line that we found as part of a holding or storage yard that went closer to where we came from, back in that direction, closer to the parking lot. Like I said, I wasn't sure what I'd be coming back here for, but knowing that there's mining history serviced by these rails and some old rail infrastructure, that's a win in my book. Even better news is up here, the earth is lower. There's some exposed sides of the rails. Let's see if we can find some information. So far, I don't see anything here. Oh, actually here. Okay, I'm looking like, let me get my light on. I think it's 1930. Yeah, it looks like 1930 OH open hearth. And looks like 136 pound rail, which is 3-foot section per yard. And it actually says LVRR, Lehigh Valley Railroad. Wow, this is incredible. This is probably the most detailed rail I found in a long time. Can we find out where it was made? Maybe, sorry, 138 pound rail. Looks like 136. 138 pound rail. 1930, no, sorry, 1920. Looking from the other angle. 1920, open hearth, 138 pound rail, LV Railroad. Minus where it was made from, we at least know exactly who owned this track and who it was intended for. And that makes it 106 years old as the making of this video. That is incredible. So aside from not finding tally marks or the manufacturer location, that's incredible information right there. And it is holding up incredibly well given its age, over 100 years old. So, you know what, thinking about it now, this might be the first time you've ever come across rail information, abandoned rail information that has specifically who the rail was intended for or used by. LV right there. So we got so much confirmation about what was back here, what was operating, that there's no deniability whatsoever. We have Railguide apps, we have other information and resources, and now physical proof right here on location. So to me, that's the win right there. And hopefully you understand why I take so much time on my videos doing what I do. Like I said, we haven't made a whole lot of progress, but it's for reasons like this. You never know what you're gonna find, those minute details that help solidify your information and your research. It's definitely a feel-good moment for me, but to the person who advised I come out here, I now understand why, and thank you for the recommendation. And we absolutely came the right time of year. If we came in just a few more months, this would be so overgrown. And although we'd still be able to find this, it'd be a lot harder to navigate through here. It's all this old fake bamboo back here right now. But when this regrows, it becomes pretty impenetrable. Now, the one thing I don't have information on, which I'm hoping some of you could answer, is when this rail infrastructure ceased to operate. We know it's here. We know when it was essentially built or put in place, who and what it serviced, where it came from, but I don't know when it ended. I don't know if it ended when the mine operation shut down. Did it end before then, after then? That I don't know. So if you have any insight on that information for CNJ or the LV right here, please let us know down below. So as we follow it, it is coming to a road here. Are the rails cut? Are they buried? Let's find out. That's where we just came from. Looks like they do still continue on, buried by earth. And are they cut or paved over? And there's a street crossing for RJ Corman. And up above there is Norfolk Southern crossing. Just about 100 yards from each other. We answered our question. We just came from right there. We saw where the rails essentially ended beneath the material. And now we know they're not paved over. They were cut. Because here they are right here. They were cut right at the edge of the roadway and do continue on in this direction. And like I was mentioning, it is incredibly thick back here, so I don't see it feasible to walk through here. There is a road paralleling it. I'm gonna see if I'm allowed to go down there. There's some signs. If we are, we'll walk a little bit further. If not, we're gonna return and pick up with the CNJ, which would have been heading up in this direction on the other side of the road. So the signs, all they say is no dumping, no littering. This is closed to vehicle traffic, but it doesn't say we can't come back here. It's not posted. It's not purple painted. So we're gonna walk it a bit further, which is gonna take us towards 309, I believe, the Cross Valley Expressway. And the rails are right here next to the road. So let's see how far they do go up until at least the expressway and see if there's any diversions or spurs coming off of this. Yeah, they're in pretty good shape back here. Got some good visibility. Let me check the rails again, see if we can find a location where these rails were rolled. I found it. Right there, Bethlehem Steel Plant. So it says Bethlehem and the ward's Open Hearth. So we know Bethlehem Steel Plant, and look what I see right there. Concrete support for something back in the day. I'm not certain this is gonna keep continuing all the way through. I have a gut instinct it's gonna dead end up here, but I've already been wrong today, so I'm gonna go a little bit further. We'll find out for certain. But it is still there off to our left. Now as we come beneath the Cross Valley Expressway, 4-lane bridge highway, well, we can see the rails did continue to here. And they're buried under this little ramp and continue off in this direction. So I definitely was mistaken. These do keep going. But I'm not going to go any further today. I think it may be worthy. Oh, actually, I'm noticing the river or creek that we're following crosses right over the road down here. The road is submerged underwater. Huh. Looks like they're also working right now currently on that cell phone tower. I think, though, I do want to follow this in the future. I think my best bet is maybe to come on e-bike. I know I could ride this road on my e-bike, cover a lot more ground, and turn into a trail that goes past those trucks, paralleling these lines. So if you guys are interested in seeing where this LV line does keep going to, without a doubt, I'd be glad to come back later this year to document that. There's even like a little washout area here. The rail is kind of levitating. So I'm gonna take another screenshot showing you where I am. So it appears, we're gonna check. CNJ, which is feet away from us, right behind us there. This without a doubt is LV. CNJ was still up here beneath this bridge. And Norfolk Southern is up higher up there. So let me take a screenshot, show you exactly where I am so you can see what we're talking about here. But I don't really want to cheat looking at the rail guide app, seeing where these rails do go to. I'd rather check in the moment when we return. So I'm not gonna spoil it for myself. I want to come back on e-bike, and even if we can't go all the way on e-bike, I can lock it up somewhere back there and keep walking. Let's see if there's anything behind us though of the CNJ. If there's not, which I'm guessing is probably not, we're gonna go back to across the road and pick up where we left off at the CNJ and walk that for a bit, see if we can find anything from that infrastructure. Oh yeah, this is a rail bed right here. This is CNJ. Had no idea how close it was. So LV right there, CNJ right here, running parallel to each other. Had no clue they were this close. So this is the CNJ rail bed up here, which is very overgrown. I'm gonna try to walk a bit of it just to see what's back there. I think my best bet's gonna be get back on the road, cross the road, pick up on the other side. But NS though is just up there. Boy, it'd be great if a train came through. It would be deafening under this bridge. The one thing that's running across my mind right now, which I've asked before, especially with ruins, is why are some things left in place, others are not? We documented the Ashley Yard. Did I hear a train horn? Gonna walk really slow. I may hear a train horn. When I documented the Ashley Yards, we followed a spur line going through neighborhoods that the rails were still intact. But the main line area that they want to turn into a rail trail, the rails are gone. Same thing here. Why are LV's tracks still here? CNJs are not. I don't have an answer. I'm sure it has to come down to funding and maybe a need to repurpose the tracks. But I always do wonder stuff like that. Existing there, non-existing here. But I'm gonna hang out here for a moment because I think I heard a train horn, either that or it was a tractor trailer horn. And look what I just found. Chunk of anthracite. So we know they were hauling coal back here. Colliery site just up there, which we're still gonna talk about. Right in between the CNJ and the LV, it looks like a remnant of a structure. There's some concrete, there's some brick. Something was residing here that has been demolished, and it's literally feet away from the LV, and CNJ would be right here. All right, we are back on the other side of the road. We now know LV tracks still in existence over there. CNJ right next to them in a really overgrown area. And where I'm standing right here is the CNJ rail bed. We're going to backtrack where we came from towards that Norfolk Southern Bridge. And we know without any confusion or concern that this 100% is a CNJ rail bed. And from what we've seen so far, nothing is left of it today. So I'm gonna walk the entire length of it back. If I find anything related to it or something interesting otherwise, I'll definitely bring you back. Otherwise, we're going to get back to the parking lot area because we're going to talk a little bit of history about the mining site that these rails once serviced. You ever see a couch with nature's carpet? If you haven't, now you have. You know, one thing that comes to mind too, with this particular rail bed we're walking on, since there's nothing here, is that I know an individual who most certainly could find some old hardware, whether it be plates or spikes or the J-hooks. A viewer, a friend named Bob, goes out with his pinpointer metal detector to areas like this, brings a little shovel or pickaxe, and he's able to find the old hardware from the rails. So I'm pretty confident that if he was here, he'd be able to find it. Maybe we'll get lucky, get RJ Corbin coming through here. So we are back at the parking lot where we started. It's right there. And I do have some details I want to share with you about the mining site. So again, not doing a deep dive, but it is worth noting a few things because it actually has some records tied to it. So the mining site began in the early 1800s with the Lehigh Valley Coal Company taking over in the 1870s and developing the Prospect Colliery. It quickly became a top regional producer, hitting 777,000 tons in 1907 and nearly 1 million tons by 1911, even setting a single month world record of 104,600 tons in March 1912. The colliery faced significant challenges, including fires like the one in 1879 destroying the breaker, and a devastating gas explosion in 1915 that killed 13 miners. Over time, production and the need did decline, and the mining ceased to operate in the 1960s, and the breaker was eventually demolished. So now you at least know what the breaker colliery site used to look like. It was located right there, serviced by CNJ, possibly LV, and was a record producer of coal in this area. But now we're gonna get up and watch and make sure you guys don't tip over the wind. We're gonna get up street level, walk down a few hundred yards because I do have 2 photos that do feature this breaker and the road with some rail transportation coming right down the street. Let's see if we can show you before and after. So I'm going to show you a before photo right now, 1941 of North River Street, which we're standing on right now. You see the massive colliery in the distance, how gargantuan it is? Streetcar running on this road that we're standing next to with the traffic. And if you notice the train bridge in the distance crossing over this road. Well, as we fade to present day, this is pretty close to that same shot. You can see the area has transformed quite a bit, but the road no longer having streetcar service, breaker's now gone, but that train bridge right there is still in existence. That's the old D&H line, which is today Norfolk Southern. So just to show you how the area has transformed in certain ways and not in others. So I have one more before photo to share with you. Right now, the D&H bridge going over River Road is to my back, it's behind me. So we're a little bit further up closer to the breaker colliery site. But pay attention to a few things here in this image. First off, we have numerous rails in the street for streetcar service. The breaker is up in the distance on the right-hand side on an embankment. There's a building right next to the streetcar and the vehicle there, which was an old United Furniture business. But that building, just pay attention to that. And on the other side of the street, there's nothing there. But in the distance, there is a bridge that the streetcar is going to or from that went over LV and CNJ. As we fade to present day, well, some things are still the same. That old United Furniture building is still here. It's now a rehabilitation center. Left-hand side was empty, now it's McDonald's and a business center. Rails are gone, road's still here, bridge in the distance is still there, but no longer for streetcar service, only for vehicles. And the breaker is now gone. It's just now reclaimed land and a coal embankment. Turned out to be a really gorgeous day. I had to strip the hoodie. It's getting a little bit too warm. There are a few thoughts I do want to share with you, if you could bear with me here. I do have a bit of a disappointment with today, and that's the fact that we didn't catch any train activity. I'm really nitpicking there. Catching a train would have been the icing on the cake, but I know it's a shot in the dark. Norfolk Southern comes through sometimes during the day, morning, overnight, and RJ Corbin right behind you guys, I think maybe a few times a month, so it's not all that often. So I knew the odds were against me catching a train, but if that's the worst of it, I'm okay with that. But I once again want to thank the individual who did reach out to me and say I should come here. He advised me to come here. I now understand why. Between the mining history behind you guys and the old LV CNJ infrastructure that's still partially existing down there, this was a home run location. I absolutely loved it. And if you couldn't tell by the excitement in my voice and the expressions on my face, I thoroughly enjoyed making this video. Finding all those extra details like the rails, the stampings, the LVRR stampings on the rails. I don't do that for theatrics. I do that because that's my genuine reaction. I'm happy and excited to see this type of stuff. And some people get it, some don't. And that's what I'm going to be getting to in just a moment. But this location, though, definitely had it all. Although I would have liked to have done a deeper dive on the mining history, I think we covered enough, especially that nearly everything is gone from that location. It's just a mound of material and reclaimed earth. But there's something I want to mention because I have received some comments here and there, but there was one more recently that stood out to me. And it's not a negative comment, it was just someone's opinion. When I make these videos, and I say these, I'm referring to railroad ruins in history, mining ruins in history, I do them because, number one, I like to keep history alive. I'm really fascinated by the history and learning about what used to exist. And I love finding little things that are still existing today from so long ago. I thoroughly enjoy doing that and sharing it with all of you, and I know many of you enjoy that as well. But when it comes to those types of videos, I know that not everyone shares the same passion. And that's the great choice about freedom and having an opinion and having interests and likes and dislikes, is that there's variety. There's a reason people do different types of things. Whenever I put out mining or railroad related videos, those videos typically do well because there's a big following for that type of history and keeping history alive, learning about what used to exist, because as we know, a lot of these areas are going to change in the future where it's going to be completely unrecognizable. Thought I heard a train. And most people won't even know what used to be in the area. And that's why I do what I do, to keep the history alive. But an individual did leave a comment though saying, you know, I don't really enjoy the old rail videos that you do, or the mining videos. He's like, they're interesting at first, but you know, I'm kind of sick of them. I'd prefer if you did less. Well, that individual is entitled to their opinion. I respect it, but it's not going to dictate what I do on my channel. Just because one person says they don't care for something or they're sick of it, doesn't mean everyone else feels the same. And that applies to any video I put out on my channel. I obviously do put out a little bit of a variety. I'd say most of it is surrounded by exploring and adventure, with a few caveats mixed in, like knobles, fairs, e-bike reviews. I did a parade recently. Anything I do on my channel, I do because it's something I want to do, but because I know there's people out there that may want to watch it. But I don't expect everyone to watch everything. As I've explained in the past, there's channels I'm subscribed to that I watch some of their videos that interest me, others I don't. If a channel makes a video that's not interesting to me, I never think of leaving a comment saying, don't do those types of videos, they don't interest me. Well, I'm not their sole audience. So it just doesn't make sense to tell someone they shouldn't do something just because you don't like it. So I won't be stopping anytime soon making any of the videos I make, specifically rail history and mining history. I'm fortunate enough to live in an area in Pennsylvania that has so much history related to those two things. And the older I'm getting, the more videos I make, the more I'm learning about how special this area is, about what used to be, and to keep the history alive for future generations. But just to say that any video I put out on my channel, if it's not for you, please don't watch it. I never would want anyone to watch something that doesn't interest them. If you do want to watch an e-bike review, they're there for those who want to watch them. If you don't want to watch a rail history video, don't watch it. It's there for those who want to watch it. It's silly that I even have to say it. I've said it before, but some people just get the mindset that they speak for everyone, and that's not the case. So regardless of what you like or don't like, I'm pretty sure there's stuff on my channel that you will enjoy watching. And if it's not for you, other things, and if other things are not for you, no harm, no foul. There's nothing wrong with skipping over it and watching or waiting for another video. So with that being said, I'm done rambling. Hope you understood what I was trying to get to, what my point was. But I definitely had a great time today. I got to learn a lot, show a lot, add another piece to the puzzle. And without a doubt, I will be back this summer to investigate the waters beneath those LV bridges and to return to my e-bike to follow the LV line further than where we stopped. So thank you so very much for coming along, for listening, for watching, and for taking time out of your day for joining me for today's adventure. Take care, everyone, and like always, I'll see you in the next video.